we could hurt someone or cause as much damage as we actually are. And if you think about this from an astral mindset, I believe empaths are some of the strongest creators of realities that there are, because we think and feel so strongly, and realities are formed through thoughts. They're basically formed through thoughts and fueled through emotion. So empaths to me are we're builders in many, many ways. And if an empath does not understand their power, it's dangerous. It's flat out dangerous. So to me, one of the scariest combinations is a strong empath who is who feels powerless and also is unhealed and doesn't understand their gifts. It's dangerous to themselves because we can be completely open to just receive energy all the time and not having any sort of sense that we can actually say no to certain thought forms. We don't have to entertain every thought that comes. We don't have to believe it's us. We don't have to wrestle with these things. And most importantly, we can move towards what feels good. A lot of empaths who feel disempowered don't realize that most simple thing, that they can move towards what feels better. And obviously, there's a lot of factors that come into this, trauma being one of the primary ones. And that's why healing is so key. This class isn't particularly for deep childhood healing or anything like that. But what I want you to get out of this class more than anything is that your thoughts and your emotions are the number one factor about how your life is turning out. And so what I want to leave you with in this particular audio is, are you connected to your true desires, and are you having a conversation that reflects that? If you are constantly looking for what's wrong, know that that's a hypervigilance that probably comes from trauma. If you're constantly trying to, okay, what's wrong? I need to look at the thing that's wrong, and I need to fix the thing that's wrong so that I can be right, so that I can be loved, so that I can survive. First of all, remember that means that the driving force behind what's inspiring you to look for what's wrong is a voice of criticism. It's a voice of lack, and it is not you, and it is not for you. And so taking time to ask yourself, anytime you feel anytime you're feeling and thinking strongly, and this is specifically for empaths, know that when you are in deep thought and deep emotion, you are powerfully magnetizing things to you. And that means you're riding down astral highways. And usually if they're lack related, if they're lack oriented, you are in massively crowded highways as well, which for the central nervous system makes us feel more and more and more unsafe. And this is the primary thing we've got to get a hold on, especially if you want to create a business or magnetize a business to you, magnetize your abundance grid. It starts here. You've got to start driving down astral highways that are for you, that make you feel more secure, that connect you with people and thoughts that are connected to people that are actually your tribe. That by astrally connecting with them, your grid is more supported. You're more supported. You're making love to your grid at all times. It's the ultimate form of making love. Physical sex is just one version of making love. The real, most deep and most intimate way that we make love is with our lives, is with our thoughts, with our feelings, how we project it, the actions we take, and the words we say. So ask yourself, how am I making love to life? Am I at war? Am I having an experience that is more resistant at its core? Am I kind of fighting against what's happening? And deep down, I actually really want to make love, but I don't know if it's right, and I feel bad, or whatever it is. Like I was talking about earlier in the class, we have collectively this shame about being creators, about being sexual at our core. And if we don't settle that, we are always going to be in conflict with what we are. And that's why we go into survival, and we're like, okay, it's okay to survive. So if you're surviving, and if you have to have something because you need it, then it's okay. But if you want something because you desire it, just because you want it, well, then it's kind of dangerous and it's not so good. When the actual opposite is true. If we don't move towards what we want, we keep creating what we don't want and experiencing what we don't want and fighting what we don't want and entertaining what we don't want and creating more of what we don't want, and then getting mad at everyone and mad at the world and mad at ourselves for being in a world we don't want to be in. But we can't move into a world we want to be in because at a core level we believe it's wrong to have a desire. And this can happen at the most subtle levels. So I want you to take some time and think about, what do I truly desire? And when it comes to my astral network, I want you to think big. Like, what you're always co-creating. You're always entertaining thoughts. And those thoughts are connected to people in the world who are feeling and thinking those same things. So do you want to be connected to a bunch of people who feel powerless and who are entertaining constantly criticism and powerless thoughts? Or do you want to be connected to people who are empowered, who are connected to their desire, who are creating something that they actually really want, who are moving towards something they want? And remember this, just because you may be ignoring your desires does not mean they're not attempting to get met. They will always attempt to get met. And we do it in ways that we're not conscious of. So it goes subconscious, that's our shadow. And that's when we do things on the astrals, which is where we're primarily creating, that are shady. And that's what I talked about when I sent out that email about what are you saying on the astrals. Most people have no freaking idea because they're not in touch with their desire. And some of the most insidious things that happen, astrally speaking, happen through people who, like through people's desires who in their waking conscious mind are obsessed with being good and obsessed with having to be right, and also usually feel extremely powerless, see themselves as powerless. A lot of times on the astrals, their desires, because they're so suppressed, are the most forceful and the most intense. And I could just go into this. This is just such a deep, deep topic. But when I send out the final version, one of the things that's going to be in it is I'm actually going to have sessions, like recorded sessions with people, where we walk through processes to deal with this so that you can see it in real time. But right now, I want you to just really start paying attention to what am I astrally saying, and what am I astrally connecting with? And am I connected with my true desires? Because if you're not, your desires are still attempting to get met. And that means they're trying to be met in a manipulative way. That means usually anything we do, there's an agenda behind it. Often one we don't realize. For me, for example, growing up, I got the message that I couldn't have needs, because we were in poverty and because things were stressful, it was like any need felt overwhelming to my mom. And so I just got the message, it wasn't necessarily direct, but the message to minimize your needs as much as possible. And I also felt ashamed of my needs. I felt like it made me bad or wrong. And so I developed a way to get my needs met indirectly. And it's honestly one of my superpowers, because what we create and what our ego does subconsciously is where all the power is, because it's 95% of our programming. This is why it's important to become really aware of what we're doing to get our needs met in the astrals, what we're doing inadvertently, when we can't just flat out say, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is how I want to get there, and be totally transparent about it. If we feel like we can't do that, or if we feel ashamed, or if we're not willing to admit what our true desires are, you can pretty much guarantee that you're attempting to get those needs met in some way. Your inner self, your desire is always going to seek its sense of being connected. It's always going to move towards what it wants, always. Your desire is your most powerful fuel. But if you're denying that, that's when it creates insidious sort of ways. It can create sickness in the body, creates these, pulls people to us who may not be upfront about what they truly want. It makes us have a lack of discernment, because when we've suppressed desire, and then finally we have an opportunity to get that met, even if it's the way in which it's coming is wrong for us in every way, we often jump onto it because we believe, well, if I don't take it now, I'm never going to get it. And that's often why people do things that they would never really consciously do. Like their inner being wouldn't do it, but they're starving to get that need met. And so they do things that they don't want to do, that they really wouldn't normally do, and things that are out of alignment for them. So these right here, this area, if we can become aware of what we're doing in the astrals, of what our desire's doing, of first of all, what our desire really is. And I want you to start with, what kind of astral conversations feel good to have? What are you truly interested in? And I know so many of you in here, like, you're interested in these kind of conversations. You're interested in also esoteric things. You're interested in how things work behind the scenes. You're interested in just, I don't know. I think if everyone got over the BS of fearing what other people thought, we would realize that actually the majority of humans want to elevate the conversation, are bored to death with how things are going. But there's the collective fear of being different. And I can't tell you how many people who message me privately or I've mentored that, this is like their secret, like a little bit of a secret that they're connecting with me, or that they like this kind of stuff. Like, they wouldn't necessarily tell people in their mainstream life, and yet they're very mainstream in every way. And from my end, because I work with this, I see it all the time, and I see the people who are seeking this out. And so I feel like this conversation is actually way bigger than anyone realizes, and there's a lot of more people involved than anyone realizes. But consciously speaking, we have this discrepancy between what we're willing to show visually, what we're willing to just own about ourselves and just get behind 100%, and what we actually literally show the world. And this is why we're not lining up to what we want. This is why we line up to realities that don't feel good. This is why we pull in people that are not a match to us. Is because we won't just own it. We won't just own where we are for fear of what people think, or fear of whatever it is we fear. And that's why this whole getting behind where you are, 100% believe, like 100% allowing your desires, 100% just moving towards it. And even if it just means, for us, starting in the astrals, what are you connecting with? Because you're calling it in. What are you having a conversation with? Because you're calling it in. And one thing that I've realized as I've been getting your emails, you guys have been so amazing to share with me as deep as you have what you're going through, what your triggers have been. And I relate so much because I'm human and I experience all the same things. What I see consistently, the pattern I've seen with all of us, is getting triggered and then way overthinking things. And trying to figure it all out, and trying to understand every nook and cranny of why this and why that, and how can we be acceptable, or I don't know. It's just like, it's so heavy, and it's like, whoa, there's another way to do this. Like, it's just about, I don't feel well. Like, this conversation is cramping my energy field. It's draining my source energy. It's not giving back to me. So I want to move towards something that feels better. So if you ask yourself, what kind of astral conversation am I having? What thoughts am I entertaining, and what emotions fuel it? That's your first indication as to what grid you are making love to, you are having sex with, because you literally are. You are always connecting, interacting with, and allowing energy within you. You're giving energy and you're partaking of energy. Is that energy the quality that you want? And if you're feeling crowded, psychically crowded, and that pressure energetically, guaranteed you're in lack, because the higher astral realms, the higher astral thought forms are much less dense. It's like there's breathing room. Again, you feel supported, not more vulnerable. You feel strengthened, not weakened. It's a super powerful way to navigate, is just, how does it feel? And then connecting with your desire. What do I truly want? Getting connected with your urge. You can't do this without your sexual desire. That's your fuel. So if you hold back your sexual desire and think it's wrong and bad and not something you should tap into, but then want a life of abundance, you're already at a discrepancy. So if you fear intimacy or fear deep connection with others, maybe start astrally. What would feel good? Start imagining. This is what our imagination is powerful for. What would the ideal reality feel like for you, where you could connect deeply with people? What does that feel like? Start tapping into that energy. What does that energy feel like? And then the last thing, ask yourself, is the reality that I'm entertaining right now, are the thoughts that I'm thinking, the primary thoughts going through my head, are they an asset or are they a liability? An asset is something that strengthens you, that adds to your value. A liability is something that weakens you, that actually takes away from your value. And it's really quick when we can, if you ask yourself, just pay attention to your thoughts, especially the ones you're constantly thinking, and ask yourself, is this an asset or a liability? Is what I'm focusing on an asset to me or a liability? Is it strengthening me or is it weakening me? Is it connected to what my body and my heart and my mind, my Trinity? Is it connected to what my Trinity wants to connect with? Or is it making me feel at war with my Trinity? Is it making me question my technology and question what I am? You see how if we just allowed ourselves to get out of that war, so much would become clear? And remember, it's just habit. That war mentality, that lack mentality is habit, and it has a very extremely strong magnetic pull because so many people are in it, because so many people are in fear. So to be even a person that can actually connect with a different realm of conversation, a different astral thought realm, already makes you extremely powerful in and of that. And then if you can continue to fuel that and move towards that, you strengthen the momentum in the other direction. And then you start calling to you, very quickly, I might add, those people who you're meant to connect with. You start calling your tribe to you. And remember, this is multidimensional. So part of your tribe may not be on your same timeline, but you can jump timelines to be in their same timeline. The conversation you're having is multidimensional. And it's past, present, future. You're always, when we're triggered, we usually get triggered to, like, wherever we're triggered, we are the emotional age of wherever that wound occurred. So it can kind of feel like we're back to a different aspect of us because we are always having a conversation with our past. So again, it's why it's a major opportunity to heal. If we get triggered and then we go to war with the trigger, or we think the trigger's bad or we're bad, or then we start going back into the same thoughts we had when we were younger, that we're bad, we're unworthy, we're not enough, there's not enough, and it creates more fear. But if we get triggered and we realize, oh yeah, all this is for me, this trigger is for me, it's a gold mine, it's a massive opportunity for me to quantum leap. I'm excited about this trigger because it's an opportunity for me to actually really connect with myself, and particularly to this part of my heart that got hardened because of trauma. And remember, how do we genuinely connect? Through love, not through cruelty, not through criticism. The truth told in love will set you free, but the truth told told without love is cruelty. It's cruel. And it is not something that helps us grow. I've said this a million times, and I'm going to wrap this up right here, but it's been proven psychologically that negative reinforcement does zero to rehabilitate behavior. Zero. There's not been any social study that has been done where negative reinforcement has been in play, where it's actually done anything long-term to rehabilitate behavior. Because the human heart does not respond like that. The minute we're cruel, if we start belittling and looking critically and judging, it shuts the heart down. We cannot truly connect with ourselves or with others if we are doing it without love, period. So the truth told without love is cruelty. And if we're being cruel, we know we're in lack. Because the only reason we would be cruel is if we believed that at a core level we were not enough. And there wasn't enough. And that fighting and going to war is the only way to survive. then you have to use force, and you have to use power, and you have to use fear and intimidation in order to feel a sense of power. So if I can belittle someone or belittle myself enough to take control of those thoughts, then I have a sense of power. And that's how the lack matrix works. It's own or be owned. It's give your power away or take power. That's how the lack matrix works. So I know this has all been really, really deep stuff, and I'm diving deep and giving you a ton of information. So take it, just take it in pieces. Remember that what this conversation is helping me do, especially those of you who are interacting and messaging me and kind of telling me what this has been like for you, it's helping me really know how to organize the content in a way that is bit by bit more concise, more clear. You guys are also telling me like the patterns you're going through as you get triggered and what kind of goes on in that thought process. And that's helping me a ton as well, because it's helping me be able to come up with processes that help work through the triggers that come up as we're shifting our matrix. But to tie this all up, you are calling in your grid. You're making love to a matrix. And the more energy you give to lack, the more you fuel the lack matrix. And the more you shift your energy and start interacting with abundance and interacting with thoughts that are more loving and that come from a place of wanting to understand with your humanity and connect with your humanity rather than judge your humanity and condemn your humanity, the more you connect with, physically speaking, a reality that feels a lot better. And the more astrally that you allow your thoughts to be elevated into the realm of possibilities, what could be, what would your ideal reality feel like? And even taking the specifics of work out of it, because I feel like even a lot of times with work and with career, people limit themselves extremely. Like as soon as you say, I want to be a coach, you've limited yourself in a sense. I want you to think big picture. What does your community of friends feel like? What does your day-to-day life feel like in your ideal matrix? Are you hustling all the time? Are you proving all the time? Or you're always on social media? Because most people who do that are exhausted. What is it that you really, really want? As soon as you can isolate that, even if it's general and not specific, if you can just move into a feeling, what kind of feel I know for most empaths, I could say most of us want deep connection. We want authentic connection with people, but we also are extremely hard on ourselves and others because we have such a bullshit detector for inauthenticity that often when someone's feeling insecure, we read that as they're being inauthentic rather than coming at it from a space of understanding like, oh, there's something they're fearful about or insecure about. So I'm going to be soft in my approach with them rather than go more into a critical mind or with yourself. If you're feeling insecure, insecurity period makes us come across as inauthentic because we don't feel safe, and when we don't feel safe, we're not being totally ourselves. That doesn't make us bad people. That doesn't make us wrong. That doesn't make us unworthy of love. That is simply coming from a fear and usually from an experience that was traumatic and something's triggering it. And so if we can approach it like that, approach ourselves like that and approach each other like that, we can get over this massive overthinking and overstressing and overly feeling insecure with each other. Because at a core level, take away the bullshit, we all just want to authentically connect. We all want to feel safe. We all want to feel whole. We all are just looking to just let it be okay that we're human and alive and that we have desires. And we all want the same thing at a core level. And so if we can tap that desire at a core level and start fueling it, then we start magnetizing very quickly people who are on that same thought stream. And I'm talking, this is like the 1%. And I don't mean just 1% financially, those who are the richest. I'm talking about those who are the most sovereign, who are the freest on the planet, who have allowed themselves to exit that incredibly crowded psychic highway of lack and war. It's overwhelming there, and it absolutely can take you out. because it drains creative life force. It's a waste of our inheritance. And so if we instead think, okay, I'm a creative being, I'm participating with this life, I'm way more powerful than I think, not more powerful than others, but I am equally, at least equally as powerful as anyone else. And if I'm a strong feeler and a strong thinker, I actually probably have more gravitational pull than other people who don't think and feel as strongly as me because they're numbed out. So that right there is a massive advantage, one that's extremely overlooked. And I'm telling you, the better my life is getting, I'm getting better and better and better at fine-tuning my manifestations. And the number one thing I've learned is that it's not about action as much as it's about resonance. And if I sit still and I get very clear, and then I tune into what I truly want, and I fuel that desire, and I keep moving towards it, and I let go of what other people think and feel, and especially let go of how I may or may not be affecting anyone else, because it's not, we as empaths get so overly concerned about what other people are thinking and feeling about us. And we make ourselves overly responsible for that. We make ourselves overly responsible for other people's emotional state. So it's a violation of a boundary because we are not in charge of other people's emotional state. And if we give them the impression that it's our job to take care of their emotional states, which is where I find most empaths drain their energy, is in worrying about what other people are thinking and feeling overly responsible for them. When we do that, we cross a boundary because we're giving the message of, you can't take care of yourself emotionally, I've got to do it. We're making ourselves way, way, way too responsible, and it makes us more insecure. So think about how you are spending your creative energy, what you're thinking about. Are you constantly thinking about what other people are thinking and feeling? Are you feeling overly responsible for what other people are feeling? Or are you letting them be emotionally sovereign beings? That's part of the reason we go to war, because if you feel responsible for how everyone else feels and you don't like what they're feeling, then you can reach in and try to control what they're feeling and make it feel better so that you feel better. Again, that's that whole analogy of, if I want my reflection in the mirror to smile, I have to smile. I can't try to change the reflection.